Let the record reflect we have reconvened with all members present. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Make some money.
Hey, may I have a motion for the executive minutes of November 23rd, 2015?
So moved.
Second.
Any council, we already council discussion, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Catalanello?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Welcome all. It's great to see our usual crowd for a council meeting. And it's been 3 weeks since our last council meeting because of the extra Monday last month, so a lot has happened, including a tremendous Santa Claus parade the day after Thanksgiving. Best weather ever. One from last year, from praying the parade would end because I couldn't feel my fingers anymore, to this year saying, let's do another lap. But the crowds were tremendous. The sight at Waverly as we lit up that beautiful tree was very impressive. And I don't know if everyone heard the story behind the tree was donated by the Peter Iosa family in memory of Ralph Piano, who gave his life to our country in Vietnam, and is a brother of our Michael Piano, the superintendent of our electric utility. So as you look at that beautiful tree on Waverly, just think about not only Ralph Piano, but all those that it represents. And this past Thursday, we had the traditional lighting of the menorah right across the street. Ben Wolkowitz and Pat Rowe from the council also joined us, and put together by Rabbi Lubin, a nice crowd. And then they came across the street to Hartley Dodge for some latkes, and so it was a very nice event. Employee of the Month for December is Marlene Dolan of the Madison Health Department for her efforts in assisting the Madison Health Department achieve accreditation and undertaking training to assume the roles of nursing supervisor and alternate registrar, as well as coordinating and staffing the flu clinics. And Cindy Weir of the Madison Police Department is celebrating her 20th anniversary on December 26th. And many attended on this Friday the retirement lunch for Robert Califoot, our longtime CFO, who is now don't think he's playing golf this very minute, but we know he's going to be playing quite a bit of golf. And it was it said something about Robert's time here when he looked in the room and saw people that represented so many different facets of our work, from not only residents, former council members and mayors, but also people from the Joint Insurance Fund, his friends from the YMCA, and his colleagues in various towns. We congratulate Robert on his great career and everything he's done for the Borough of Madison. Now, as you look at this full room, I just want to talk about, I think, as I wrote down here, tonight the theme is team, because we know teamwork is working for a common goal, and the next couple of things are really talking about working for a common goal, because we have our team who represents us in Trenton, who has worked very hard for us. I'll talk about that in just a second. We'll be talking about the teamwork we have with the Board of Education as we closed on the Green Village Road School property. And of course, we're talking about the success of our field hockey and football teams, and we recognize that. So everyone should be congratulated on working and doing great work for the Borough of Madison. So let me come down below and we'll start our presentations. Testing, 1, 2.
Okay.
That one's on?
Okay. Or there's a horse.
Or use both, I'll be stereo.
There we go. Okay.
Hi, Pat.
Yeah, I would have moved it.
Am I bothering you?
Again, the first team, I don't think this is amplifying, but we're catching on the video, so that's the important thing. So our first team, as I mentioned, is our team in Trenton. Our Assemblyman John McKeon and Assemblywoman Mila J.C. working so hard for Madison as we our open space fund, and that has been able to give us a chance to leverage funds through the county and through the state. For us?
Sure, thank you, Mayor. You know, it's reporting. It's not all the time that elected officials come and give money as opposed to take it away. We're happy to do that. But when you mention the team, I mean this sincerely. Mayor, it starts with you. The team. We're all a team. Part the wonderful student. And we're pleased that in part the check that we're about to present so I just want to mention to you my own congratulations. It's great. Parents all support that. Not the winning, although it's great in summer. Doing all that hard work in the off season and part of something special, and then knowing that. What I was really impressed with in Madison was when I got to use your team. I learned a lot about this community down in Trenton. The football team out of the county and I talk about that all the time. And you follow your example. I want to congratulate you. That resolution is signed by the governor, the Senate President, and the Speaker. JC, my partner, I'm going to let you take over as far as the check is concerned.
On behalf of our pleasure to this is a mock-up so that you can all see it of $500,000, and it is to be used
Emma's right there.
for. I don't know that you could get more beautiful. But this will certainly help people love to come, especially on Borough Hill Day and on Arbor Day and all the other events that you have here. Very, very lucky to be here, and we know that Madison is stewards in good hands with this council, and in particular with are very happy to present this today to all of you.
There's an next check. I see that.
Bye-bye. Have a wonderful holiday. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Same to you, though. Thank you.
So these aren't working either.
Oh, hello. That's,
They're dead.
is that, or you, do we, you can hear,
Can
that?
you hear me? Oh, okay.
I don't know how. Can't hear this.
All right, get me started on this one.
We're having technical difficulties here.
Pennywise and pound foolish.
I know we have members of the Madison Board of Education here, so please come forward. And how about if the council also stand up, come in the middle area here? Our superintendent.
We should stand on the wings and they should fill
Yeah.
the center.
A lot of people.
I know.
Come on in. Yep. So up here right now, you have the administration of both the school district and the Borough of Madison, but also the elected officials, the volunteers that have been working so hard to make Madison even better. In what started, what seems like a very long time ago, we worked on a quest together to do the best with the Green Village Road School property, my alma mater. And we cited it for redevelopment, not only to maximize its value, but to give Madison a project that we could be very proud of. This development, which will start in the new year, and the school will be gone by March, so take your pictures now, will put 130 residents steps away from our great downtown, steps away from our restaurants, steps away from our stores, and of course, steps away to the world as they step on Midtown Direct and head to the city and beyond. This couldn't have happened without all the people here working together, and some people who are no longer here that worked on it before. And also, what we took it a step further, because redevelopment calls for a pilot, which typically 5% goes to the county, 95% stays with the municipality. Knowing that a good stream of revenue for the Board of Education would be helpful, they will also have a share of that pilot. So not only the sale, but the pilot will ensure in the years to come they were taking care of our students and all our residents. And before we exchange checks, Lisa, would you like to say a few words?
Oh, I didn't know this was a speaking engagement.
Sorry. I do that.
You have a knack of that. I just wanted to thank the council, our attorneys who aren't here, and everybody who worked on getting this done. It was a long road, but it was a great learning experience. I think we learned to stop laughing, Dave. We learned to really appreciate each other. And I said last week at our meeting, I think this is probably one of the greatest shared services projects in this state. And I think we should all be proud of the time we put in and just to live here in this really great community. So that's all I have to add. Thank you.
And this is another one. This check cannot be put into the ATM, but this does truly represent a check that was transferred earlier this month from the Kushner Real Estate Group to the Board of Education for $12 million. And included in our partnership with the development of the fields at the MRC, recognizing that not only would it be serving borough programs, but also high school programs and the Board of Education programs, the Board of Education pledged a share of this towards the turf field project.
And with that, here's the check for $1 million that is given from the board to the borough for the MRC development.
So yep, thank you all for
Good job, man.
That's right.
No one stays longer than that. No, except us.
All right, Anne-Marie, it's time for... Let's have the field hockey team please come forward.
A lot of field hockey is.
Whoop, whoop. Oh, my pronunciation list. Can't lose that. Yeah. Okay, first of all, I'm going to make a little disclaimer and apology. I have practiced some of these names, and I do have some pronunciations. Excuse me. But if I butcher your name, it's people who have seen me up here. I sometimes butcher my own name, so don't take it personally. So, yep, I'm tethered, so you can hear me or you can see me, but you may not be able to do both. This is going to be, I'll tell you what, Anne-Marie, I'm going to hand these to you as I call off the names from my list here. But first of all, this is December and it's a little warm in here. But as I point out every year, Anne-Marie and I are classmates, and so it's always fun to have our reunion almost on an annual basis here. And this is the proclamation from our Assembly and State Senate on recognizing the great success that the field hockey team has given us. And I need to borrow just one of these to read it, and I will read each of these in full. No, yeah, teamwork, that's right, our theme for the day. The Madison Council hereby congratulate the members of the Madison High School field hockey team for achievement in winning the NJSIAA Group 2 State Championship, NJSIAA North 2 State Championship, same letters, North 2 Group 2 Sectional Championship, Morris County Championship, and the NJAC Liberty Division Championship. These accomplishments required extraordinary effort, outstanding teamwork, dedication, and perseverance. We commend the team members for their commitment in reaching these goals and recognize coaches Anne-Marie Davies, Victoria Sacco, Courtney Davis, sorry. Yeah, I'm giving you an extra kid, aren't I? Sorry. Courtney Davis, Clarissa Sacco, and Jackie Bertos for their leadership in training and coaching. The dedication and achievements of these outstanding athletes have brought great pride to the Borough of Madison. In testimony of appreciation, I hereundo set the official seal of the Borough of Madison. Abby Chaporian. Thank you. Emma Yost. Carolyn Sillen. Sarah Timmons. All right. Amanda De Silva. Sarah Luciano. Sage Geyer. Lauren Taylor, Elizabeth Romano, Caroline Blount, Stephanie Delavia, Catherine Crowley, Caroline Turnbull, Caitlin De Silva, Sydney Fielding, Chloe Stern, Emma Tickner, Jennifer Conroy, Carrie Ann McClay, Jillian Perrette, Megan Brennan, Emily Flamme, Jessica Lusardi, and Fiona Purse. Congratulations.
No, the lights were on.
Now it's really going to get crowded up here.
We had blue.
Can I have the coaches and the players for the Madison High School football Dodgers?
Do you have a kid graduating?
No, summer.
Kind of squeeze up here a little bit.
Gets two each.
I can't go. A couple years ago, this is my youngest.
Certainly have them for the first.
Welcome. You must have felt pretty impressive to be running out in that field at MetLife Stadium. I heard you had to do a little practice round just to get the jitters out, because it's a little bit different than running out onto Monica Field and all of a sudden you're out at MetLife Stadium. But as you went out there, you represented Madison so well and you did us proud. So let me read this and we will present them. The mayor and council hereby congratulate the members of the Madison High School Dodgers football team for achievement in winning their fourth NJSIAA North 2 Group 2 state championship under Coach Kubik and the 15th state title for Madison High School. This accomplishment required extraordinary effort, outstanding teamwork, dedication, and perseverance. We commend the team members for their commitment in reaching this goal and recognize head coach Chris Kubik and the staff, the skilled assistants, for their leadership in training and coaching. The dedication and achievements of these outstanding athletes have brought great pride to the Borough of Madison. In testimony of our appreciation, I here set unto the official seal of the Borough of Madison. Have your proclamation from our State Assembly and Senate. I'm going to call the... I did not get a pronunciation guide with this group, and so I'm going to apologize right away. Thankfully, I start off easy. Brian Bradley. Joe Mobley. Hey, Joe. Dom Lupino. Ryan Schmitz. Zach Shoup. Sean Shadari. Mike Delana. Brian Kraska. Jonathan Butler. Santi Quintera. Griffin Lutz. Mike Martorano. Nick Coviello. Michael Kearney. Nick Taylor. Jack Tickner. Isaac Zapata. Ryan Mana. Tommy Dambola. Matt Boyd. PJ Mulcahy. Pat Higgins. Matt O'Donnell. Kyle Monaco. Henry Pace. Henry. Okay. Justin Delana. Max North. Shane Horn. Trevor Jason. Dante Diano. Sorry. Santiago Rango. Max Downing. Brian Harris. Santiago Alcillo. Yakos Costidas. I think I lost a syllable there. That Damian Garubo. Nate Klimaszewski, sorry. Paul Links. Chris Rabel. Ian Inken. Anthony Vacciano. Oh, wait, there's more. Joey DiBiase. Christian Watson. Griffin Meister. Jake Ducey. Peter Habaj. Josh Kirkowitz. Peter Catalanello. Catalanello. Sorry. Tyler Peterson. Tom Kiernan. And it's evident that practice makes a difference, and so next year I'm going to get this list at the beginning of the season so I can start practicing so it's perfect by the end of the season. But congratulations, you have done Madison proud. Now, you are welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but if you do leave, we have to leave the doors open, so please be quiet until you get out the front door. But we're not rushing you out. You can stay. You're more than welcome. All right.
Hey, can I go?
Yeah, you're welcome.
Hey, Marie. Take care of yourself.
Recess, man? No.
No.
He's not.
Yeah, it's not him. He's, I don't know where he is. He's right here. He's behind, this is Shane Horn.
Yeah, I know.
And that's Peter Catalanello. Right there.
This one looks like looks like his mother. Thank you, Jesus. He does. He looks just like him. Really? You don't think so?
I think it looks like that, yeah.
Okay.
Those damn Irish jeans.
And we are offering free seat upgrades for those that want to move to the front row. Okay, we'll just give a few minutes for it to calm down out there, and then we'll get to reports. Okay, Community Affairs, Ms. Bailey.
Thank you, Mayor. From the Madison Senior Center, programming requests are increasing. They have a new Tuesday canasta group, and they've increased the number of ping pong sessions from 3 to 4 days. The pool table is now booked on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday afternoons, requiring an upcoming visit from a billiard company to level the table and cushion the surface.
Just one
Yeah.
1 second, because I don't think we have amplification out here, but we are recording. But can you hear in the back? So I think we need to talk. Yep, we have to talk. No, I don't think we're amplifying. So I think we have to talk in the mic so we record, and we have to talk extra loud so the people in the cheap seats can hear us.
Okay. The Madison Senior Center is once again a collection point for used eyeglasses, reading glasses, and sunglasses, as well as hearing aids, jewelry, and giftware. In the first month, we received donations of 47 pairs of glasses, which will be delivered to the New Eyes for the Needy in Short Hills. The Senior Citizen Advisory Committee was treated to a tour of the new Borough website by Erica Cruz at their December 10th meeting. All agreed that it was a better visual appeal and will be easier to navigate. On December 1st, the Edna Arley Byrne attended the Rutgers Extension Program Advanced Care Planning. Topics included the differences between guardianship, medical and financial proxy, and power of attorney, and comparisons of advanced medical directives, living wills, DNRs, and the recently state-approved POLST, Practitioner's Order for Life-Sustaining Treatment. Familiarity with these and other issues related to advanced aging are of use for referrals when family members call seeking resources on relocation, daycare, and other issues. The Madison Health Department has applied for a grant from the Grata Fund for senior care, and the Senior Center and Senior Citizens Advisory Committee are participating in the application. The first portion would be an assessment of the senior population, including age, economic status, health problems, community engagement, and other facets that are used to create an overview of our seniors. The data collected will assist in future planning and ensure Madison remains an age-friendly community. From the Downtown Development Commission, Madison holiday gift checks are now available. Receive one free $10 gift check for every $100 purchased in Madison holiday gift checks. Please redeem the gift checks for holiday shopping and giving at businesses throughout Madison. Holiday gift checks are available for purchase from Friday, November 27th to Christmas Eve, only at Kramer's Carpet One floor home at 73 Main Street. Their hours of operation are 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Saturday 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Thank you. That is all.
Thank you. Public Safety, Mr. Catanello.
Better this time. Thank you, Mayor. Okay, so years on the trading floor have prepared me well for no microphones. From the fire department, congratulations to two of our volunteer firefighters, Ken Syke and Craig Thomas, who just completed the 96-hour Firefighter 2 class at the Morris County Fire Training Academy. Fire department would also like to remind all residents to make sure their smoke alarms are working properly. It's already passed. On Sunday morning, December 6th, around 2:50 a.m., a smoke detector alerted and awakened the Madison family of a fire in their basement. The early detection and warning allowed the family to escape safely and for the fire to be extinguished while still relatively small. And the chief would like to remind you that smoke alarms do indeed save lives. From the police department, what the chief would like to point out is that for the month of November, we had 0 hours of sergeant overtime, which is a huge improvement compared to where we were 1 year ago, even 4 or 5 months ago. As it pertains to the newly established rank of corporal duty experienced 269 hours of supervision coverage, which resulted in an overtime savings of approximately $22,000 this month. So again, just a huge improvement over what we were paying in the past. Other than that, we reinstituted the nighttime walking post for the holiday season and the safety of holiday shoppers. The Madison Police Department and PBA number 92 conducted a food drive with its community partners and donated approximately 2 tons of food to the Morris County Interfaith Food Pantry. We hosted training for area police departments on motor vehicle hidden compartments on November 9th, and officers along with fire and ambulance personnel saved the life of a person in cardiac arrest after a successful CPR and AED deployment. This is the second life save for Corporal Della Valle and Patrolman Duraco in recent months. The Madison Police Department continues its investigation to the hit-and-run accident where a 4-year-old was struck on Main Street on November 19th. The suspect vehicle is believed to be a white Subaru Outback, either 2013 or 2014 model year. Anyone with information is asked to please call the Madison Police Department. Police Department managed a successful Christmas parade, and it's related as it related to public safety. And Detective Sergeant Kozakowski was awarded a certificate for 20 years of service. Thank you, Mayor.
Good. Thank you. Utilities, Ms. Vitale.
Thank you, Mayor. From the Electric Department. This past 2 weeks have completed pole transfers at Lorraine Road. They installed anchor and die gown at Lancaster Road and Prospect Street. They inspected, cleaned, and repaired 25 pumps in transformer vaults and manholes. Did a system reinforcement on Ridgedale Avenue Circuit, and did their normal upgrades and removal and mark-out requests. One of the things that they will like to announce is that they will be working and replacing all the existing pole light fixtures on Main Street from Seaman to Brook Lake with high-intensity LED fixtures to improve the lighting by Burger King, the Staples Shopping Center, and Starbucks in that entire neighborhood. So that's really good news. We had a little problem down there not too long ago, so that's going to help some. From the Water Department, 1.5-inch copper water service was excavated and installed at 118 Lewanika Way. The water samples taken for the state-mandated testing were done. There were 42 requests for locating and marking underground utilities for homeowners, contractors, etc. 5 curb boxes were checked and water was turned off. 3 curb boxes were excavated and replaced. 10 outside registers for water meters were repaired or replaced. 4 meters were replaced due to age and leakage. 4 water shutoffs and disconnections for house demolition and meters were removed. Well E redevelopment pumping capacity was checked, and Well E is back in service. Concrete sidewalk and pad were formed and poured, waiting for the arrival of a new generator at the Well E. And they also checked and took readings at all of our interconnects with Florham Park Water that was witnessed by Hatchmont McDonald. One of the great things that happened this past week, after lots and lots of work, we did what is considered a utility bill merge, and that's complete. So I'm happy to report that the utility bill merge has been absolutely completed. There were a few little kinks, but not as many as we thought there would be. It was a very complex project. And I just want to thank the utility billing department for their help, especially Donna Carey. Donna came in early. She stayed late. She worked on the weekends just to get the job done. And thanks to their effort, all utility services will now be contained on one bill. This will save the borough time, money, and postage. There's also, you're going to notice that there's a barcode that's been added on the bill stubs, which will help speed the payment processing. And a new on-bill pay platform is being launched tomorrow morning, which will allow residents to access account information online, including past payments and existing balances. With the old system, there were a lot of problems with people getting on to do online banking, so we're hoping that this new system is going to help that. So this was a very complicated and challenging project, and I just want to say to all the staff, thank you for all their help, and the residents of the town are really, truly going to benefit from this. And I also want to thank Jim Burnett, because he stuck behind this and really worked with that utility department to get this done. Thank you.
Thank you. And Health, and if you have a report for Finance Borough Clerk from Mr. Landrigan, Mr. Wolkowitz.
You have it, or
I don't.
not?
I just, if
do
you have
not
it,
as well.
if we don't, we won't have one.
No. I just have a rather brief report from the Health Department. This is the season for, among other things, Madison Borough pet owners' renewal of licenses. That has to be completed by January 31st, but they're accepting applications right now. The information you need to bring with you includes proof of current rabies immunity, good through at least October 31st, 2016. So by all means, please take care of it. And I would also like to convey the wishes of the Madison Health Department that everyone have a safe and healthy holiday season. Thank you.
Thank you. Public Works and Engineering, Mr. Rowe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. From the Public Works Department, the leaf collections will end this coming Wednesday, December 16th, so please make sure your remaining leaves are out on the curb before then. This is also the last week for yard waste pickup. And from the Engineering Department, from the Water, DPW and water staff was successful in getting the concrete slab for the emergency generator poured with improved walks surrounding the well house. To follow on to Mrs. Vitale's, the welly pump section and shaft were replaced and a rebuilt motor was placed into service by the contractor per their recommendations during the redevelopment. And finally, the sidewalker contract, Diamond Construction, was successful in pouring concrete walks requested around the synthetic turf fields to connect the paved access to the tennis court turnaround. So in other words, we finally connected the Board of Ed parking lot to our own.
Thank you. Just one other announcement. Our traditional New Year's Day reorganization meeting this year will be at 1 p.m. The previous years that have been at 12 noon, so 1 hour later. Any communications and petitions?
None received, Mayor.
And now we're on to first of two invitations for discussion. This one is for, we have a lot of new faces in the audience. This one is limited to items on the agenda. So the items on the agenda are the Madison Community Pool presentation, downtown market analysis, our 2016 capital budget plan, and you can also comment on any resolutions. If you want, I know some people are here to comment on the what is happening to some of our historic homes. That chance to comment will come in probably about 15-20 minutes as we go on to back to that part of the agenda, number 15 on the agenda. So anyone wishing to comment on items on the agenda, please step forward, state your name, your address, and then the agenda item you are commenting on. And please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less if possible.
Yes, sir, Mayor. So many good things to talk about. That was a great presentation that you guys did for the two school teams.
Thank you.
Good turnout by the community. Hopefully they continue on with that success in the future. I just wanted to make an observation, and I'm kind of happy to see this on the agenda. And I don't know if you have any information you want to share with us, but item R332 for the renewal of the theater license for Bowtie Cinemas. Is that a request from them to stay? Yeah? So we have them for another year? Hopefully, you don't know. Yeah.
They have a license.
They have a license.
They have a license to show.
Stay a day, a year, or maybe another 25 years. Okay. And then also you found a skate guard for the community skating rink. It's good. Now, I don't know if we want cold weather or not, but
right.
If it comes, we'll have somebody to help take care of it. So that's great. Thanks a lot for putting that position out there. It made a big difference last year, so hopefully we'll have the same success this year to have some good ice.
Thank you.
Maureen Byrne, 49 Albright. And as the parent of a child who broke his collarbone on that skating rink, I'm really happy we have a skating guard. I'm here to talk about the downtown market analysis and study. This is coming from the DDC. The DDC is the Downtown Development Commission. And the DDC is empowered to support and to encourage downtown businesses and encourage people to come downtown. And we do this in a number of ways. We sponsor Bottle Hill Day, we sponsor May Day, we sponsor the Taste of Madison. All those are fundraising activities. But we also work with the Chamber of Commerce to try and encourage businesses that are there to stay and to encourage businesses to come and relocate to Madison. As many of you know, Blue Ridge Mountain Sports is going out of business. That could very well be called our anchor store for Madison. It's a very large property, and that's going to be available. As well as there is a very high vacancy rate on Waverly Place, which has to be addressed. And so what we thought needed to be done was a market study and analysis of the downtown to help us figure out what exactly is it that we are bringing people downtown to do. Are we bringing them downtown to eat in restaurants? Are we bringing them downtown to shop in stores? Are we bringing them downtown because of the Museum of Early Trades and Crafts and MACA and all of the arts? What we need to do is we need some guidance that will help us take Madison forward. And so we're hoping that the GDC can partner with the Borough of Madison on this market study and analysis that would take place as soon as possible, so that we could begin implementing it as soon as the spring or the summer. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to be heard on items on the agenda? Harvey, you're coming up shortly. So, yep, you are the agenda. Yes. Seeing no one else, I close this part of the meeting, and now I call up Harvey Allen, Vice President of the Board of Trustees, Madison Community Pool.
Harvey Allen, 22 Del Barton Drive here in Madison, Vice President of the Madison Community Pool. Handouts.
Thank you. There you go. You're welcome.
Yes, thank you.
Boy, this is,
Look at that.
I'm going to do my move.
Yeah. Sure. Ready?
Yes.
Okay. There we go. Okay. Technical difficulties, right? I'm here to do a little review of the Madison Pool and what we do and bring to the community, and make a request for an expansion of the Madison Community Pool. The pool itself is a very complicated business. I mean, we think of it primarily during swim season. We're thinking about the pool as regular citizens, but work goes on year round with the pool. We have a group of 12 trustees, business professionals in the fields of finance. We have CPAs, registered nurses, MBAs, and attorneys serving on the board as well. And we do a capital planning on an annual basis when we go through our budget process. You'll note that we have a little over $1 million worth of assets there in the pool. That's the facilities that exist there, the pumps and pipes and the bucket, as well as the building and other items there. And our annual operating budget is in excess of $250,000 every year. We have 96 employees, and that's where the bulk of our expenditures come. In the management employees, the swim team coaches, the lifeguards. I mean, everybody that we have there is certified and is a AED and CPR certified individual. And all of the lifeguards, of course, are lifesavers, professional lifesavers as well. Water safety instructors have additional experience to teach of various strokes. And then we also are regulated by the state and by the borough. The regulations we have are quite extensive and very particular and peculiar to operating a public bathing facility. We follow those very, very well. We have pre-opening inspections. Before we can open every year, we have to have the DCA, the New Jersey Department of Consumer Affairs, come and inspect our slides. They're over 12 foot tall, therefore they qualify as amusement rides. And we follow that, the guidelines that are there, which requires us to have a welding inspection annually, as well as the Board of Health inspections that we have, the electrical inspections, and those things. And so, and it's really an ongoing, in the ongoing season, we do regular water quality checks on an hourly basis at the pool. We have weekly, Garden State Labs does an inspection and provides that information to the Board of Health, as well as any other Board of Health issues that need to come up. So we add value to the community. I mean, one of the things that we do, and it's in our charter, is that we're providing a safe, affordable place for Madison residents to spend summer days. Sometimes the word affordable can be discussed, if you wish. We do a survey annually of the other facilities in the area and make sure that our rates are lower or comparable to any of the other competition that we have out in the marketplace. So we offer over 60 Red Cross certified swim lesson classes every summer. This last year we had 612 students in our classes, and we did that with 8 instructors and some lifeguard aides that we had with us. We belong to the North Jersey Swim League, and that's a team league for our swim team. We had 132 swimmers, and they attended 10 league meets. We open at 6:30 in the morning, Monday through Friday, and we have early pool hours as well for the children. We open up the baby pool while lessons are going on so that parents can get their young children in and have a time before the nap time, basically. We have moonlight swims that we offer on a relatively frequent basis, maybe 4 times probably this coming year. We'll have those, and maybe another event or 2 as well. We also provide live entertainment at those moonlight swims. We also have additional live entertainment on weekend afternoons as well. So what we're doing as well there, by employing our Madison youth, is we're not only providing the entertainment for the families that are members there and visitors of our members, but we're also employing Madison youth and helping them learn how to work. And we view that as important probably as providing the recreational facility that we do. Our attendance last year was really in excess of 45,000. We started counting after the Memorial Day weekend, and we didn't count over the Labor Day weekend as well. And we probably had 200 or 300 people a day attend during that time. We have primarily our service group is Madison residents. We have 80% basically, 88% of our members are Madison memberships, and of those we have each of those memberships really equates to 4.2 members at the pool. So you're talking about thousands of members or 4,000 or so other individuals. We offer a lot of different types of memberships as well, listed here, and you can see the distribution. And predominantly it's Madison families that we're servicing. Here is a breakout that shows you the distribution of the age. Here you see the 80-20 rule really come into play. 80% of our members are youth, and 20% of them are the adults. So the members bring the children in, and that's kind of the way things have worked out for us there. So what we're requesting today is council to approve us to add a training pool to the baby pool area. We evaluate these capital improvements every year, and we're prioritize our membership needs and wants. We survey them to find out what it is they're interested in, what they want to do. And many of the past improvements we've done recently are not visible improvements. You can't see the new piping that has gone in. You can't see the tile work that was done. You can't see the concrete improvements that were made. So we're looking to do something that has more visibility. The current surge that we're having in births here in Madison is very evident through our membership. I mean, we see it, and I'm sure the school district is going to experience it soon as well. So we have a member requirement, basically, that is a place to swim for parents who have diapered children and toilet-trained children. So when you have an age difference of a few years, and we have an area that doesn't allow diapers in, and an area that's restricted only to diapers, then parents who have children that cross that bridge don't have a place to go at the pool right now. And it makes it difficult for them. The operational requirement that we have is the draining of a pool is required anytime we have a major fecal incident. To drain and refill the main pool at the Madison Pool is a 4 to 5 day event. It takes a day to drain and a minimum of 3 to 4 days to refill the pool. Baby pool, on the other hand, is something that we can do in hours. And with adding this training pool, we've reduced the risk that we would run of being out of service for a large portion of the summer. So, and then too, as I mentioned before, you get to see something. A new pool is something that really shows up and that people will actually recognize. And we have a 50th year anniversary coming up. The pool was organized in 1967, and so we are looking to do something big for our 50th anniversary and to celebrate and help folks see it. This is a picture of the existing side of the pool. The blue arrow points to the baby pool. The other area that's out to the left, that's the beginning of the 3-foot section of the main pool. And then here is a concept drawing that we have of one way that we might be able to add into that area a training pool that would allow these parents and children to be able to be together in a particular space. So that is, and the other thing that we've considered doing is perhaps it would be a place where we could do mom and me lessons, maybe add an additional lesson for toddlers, that sort of thing. So right now we don't really have a place to make that sort of thing happen. And this is a second drawing that we have, second concept drawing. So in conclusion, I mean, basically what I'd really like to ask you to do is approve for the pool to provide this addition on the property that we lease from the borough.
So two things. One, any questions to Harvey on the presentation itself? And then as the lease we have with the pool does ask that the council approve any major capital improvements. So if there's any concerns or questions on that. So Pat?
So, number one, it looks like a really nice addition, Harvey.
Pardon me?
It looks like a very nice addition.
Thank you.
The only question I have is that area is full of wetlands. Does it in any way encroach on a protected area or a buffer area?
No, not in that particular area. The wetlands area actually, as defined currently, runs along the fence line and across the back fence line. There was a letter of interpretation that was a little bit different than that, but that letter of interpretation is no longer standing.
Mm-hmm. Ostry?
So we are getting a new letter of interpretation for Memorial Park.
Does it cover
How
the
would
pool
that
area?
affect the pool area?
I guess once we get...
I don't think we can say yay or nay until we make sure that there aren't new wetland delineations by the DEP.
Or we could say yay pending that it doesn't infringe on wetlands or transition areas.
We've got to be very careful because
When do you anticipate hearing?
April.
April? For us, that's probably not an issue. I don't think we would start this until September of this year.
Okay.
So we're we're not, we're not going any further until we hear from you that it's okay
Yeah,
in terms of planning. So,
Yeah, I would be very careful because, DEP has made it very clear to us that the lines could change. And, conditions have changed down there with wetlands.
Have we formally requested the LOI at this point?
Yeah, the
Oh, yeah.
letter was sent at the end of October. Bob Vogel may be here.
was there a resolution for that I
Yeah.
missed?
Yes. Bob Wright?
Just to respond to Austri's point, we do have
Bob, sorry, you need to come up to the microphone so we capture you on the TV audio. And then after Austri's questions and comments, Rob is up next.
Austria makes a very good point about the letter of interpretation renewal. So our last letter of interpretation expired, and we were encouraged to resubmit the documents as a result of some projects that were being contemplated in the fringe areas around the wetlands. And we have recently gotten all the application materials back to our office. Actually, that they were received by me about a month ago, and the linchpin was that the permit application fee all by itself was another $14,000, which we didn't have and we didn't request from open space. And so I plan to do that over the winter, and hopefully we'll be able to get that $14,000 so we can actually submit the letter of interpretation application package in January, Austria. So
then when will the DEP come back to us?
well, we're going to have when we submitted the original, as I recall, it was 6 to 8 months to get an answer. It should be easier the second time around because they're reviewing the same information essentially. So, we're going to have to hand them. We're going to have to hand them for an answer, but I think we can get one in 3 to 6 months. We should be able to.
You're talking about June now, July.
Yes.
Hey, Rob?
Thank you.
Yeah.
What's the anticipated budget for the project, and how will you finance it?
We do capital planning. The current anticipation on that particular part of the pool itself is $120,000. It's the bulk work that would be done probably would be double that, quite frankly. But that includes a lot of other changes. We do not have to have a additional pump or piping laid for this. The existing pumps that we use for the baby pool will be sufficient. We have about 4 times the required turnover for the baby pool, and the additional pool would probably just make it to like 1.5 times the turnover rate that's mandated by the state. So the funding is going to come out of our capital reserve. We do capital planning on a regular basis. We've been doing it for quite some time, and we set up a capital reserve to handle our anticipated needs as we go forward. This would add to our depreciation load a little bit, but we'll have to see how it takes us. Funds currently exist to be a project.
Thank you.
Oh, by the way, we do submit, when we pay our lease to the borough, we also submit our audited financial statements. So they're available to you.
I trust you. Even though I'm Sicilian.
Any other questions? So pending issues related to wetlands, are there any concerns with the pool continuing along this path? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Harvey.
Appreciate your time.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
Yep. Downtown market analysis and study. Austri?
Right. Thank you, Mayor. I'm the liaison to the DDC. As you heard from Maureen Byrne, there's a lot of concern about empty storefronts in Madison, and we feel it's time to do a study and analysis. a small group from the DDC met with me and the mayor, and we began talking about creating an RFP, hiring a consultant, and we feel that the information is necessary also to then decide what the borough is going to need to do and hire for to maintain our downtown. I would also like to see with this that we expand the committee. I think the RFP needs to be vetted by market people or maybe residents here in town who have that expertise to help us to make sure we're asking the right questions. And so I'm basically asking tonight just to approve or give the blessing of the council to have the DDC continue refining that RFP, and then we'll see if we can locate a bigger group to then vet that RFP to then really make sure we've got the right questions answered.
Pat and then Ben?
So I guess two groups I think that we definitely need to make sure we're including is the landlords who own the properties downtown, and also the chamber, who really represents the merchants as their association. And I'm assuming you're going to reach out to those groups as well, because I think they should have a tremendous amount of input that would help formulate that and eventually help us make some decisions about how we want to move forward with the downtown.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Thank you.
Ben?
Thank you. I strongly favor our doing this, but I have a bit of an exception, and that is that I think we need to form a committee sooner than later, because the problems that we're incurring in downtown are, in many cases, problems that are pervasive throughout the borough, having to do with traffic, parking. I mean, you hear these things as you go around town in many different areas, and to the extent that they impact the downtown, and they do, it seems to me we need to have a more comprehensive look at the issues of the downtown. The way we have done this in the last 2 years that's worked rather well, these strategic planning committees. And what we've discovered is that a large group of talented residents who have expertise in various areas that apply are willing to donate their time. And I would strongly encourage that we go down that path along the lines of Councilwoman Bailey's suggestion. So and as well Councilman Rose. There are lots of different expertise that needs to be at the table. Maybe not always at the table, but certainly going through and participating in this action. It is a very involved activity. Just as a side note, there's an extensive literature on revitalizing downtown, so I suggest that everyone do a little bit of a Google search and take an hour, and you'll see that these are not simple, because you push in one area and it pushes the balloon in another area, and you need to know that before you do something dramatic. So again, I'm absolutely in favor. I share the concern. I just think we need a broader view of residents of this community to participate actively in this effort.
Rob, and then Carmelo.
Ben, are you saying that you'd want to form the committee in addition to the consultant, or instead of?
My preference would be to have the committee first.
Yes.
And then if they feel the necessity of hiring a consultant for various areas, by all means do it.
I would agree with that. I would also further add that I think any fees we pay for the consultants, in order for the merchants and landlords to have some skin in the game, that they share the cost with the borough. Because what if we go out, hire a consultant, he comes back with the recommendations, and they say, nah, no interest. I think that there has to be some sort of shared responsibility in like a public-private partnership as it pertains to what we're trying to do, since everybody's got to be on board. That's the only thing I would add.
Yeah.
But I would agree we would do the strategic planning first, I think.
Yes, and certainly the DDC discussions were that they are interested in funding, if not all of it, certainly a substantial part of it. There may be challenges to get the landlords, without a SID or a bid, more difficult to get further, but it is a valid point. Carmelo?
That's a very interesting concept, I think, that Ben has brought up. But I also, and I really think that it would be a great concept is to bring, because we had a lot of success with the strategic planning groups this year. But I also think that you need somebody to bring all of that together. You know, you can have meetings, and you need somebody that is going to take that information that comes from, the landlords and comes from the people that are just renting, people who want to come in here. There's a lot to look at. You have to look at ordinances and make sure that we are friendly to businesses who want to come into this town. So I still think that you need that one person that has the expertise that can lead a group of people, because this is a little bit different. I think this is a little bit different. This is marketing more than anything, you know, and how do we want to market Madison? I think it's long overdue. One of the things that I talked to Ray about a couple of weeks ago was a long time ago when downtown was getting to be very shabby looking. Project for Public Spaces came in and just gave an absolutely, great report and said, this is what you need to do in the town to bring it up to par. When Mariana Holden was mayor, she brought them back, and we revisited all of that at that time. So I think that when you start bringing in partners like that, people who actually have the expertise in doing it, because this is monumental. This has to take into consideration, looking at the parking. I still hear people complaining about parking. I must have like 100 parking reports in all the years that I've been here on council, and nothing has been able to get off the ground. So, it's my opinion that, I think that this is good. I think to make that combination of both might work out a lot better.
Ben?
Yeah, I was just going to add that there's really nothing lost except some time, obviously, if you were to form a committee and see how they can go. I mean, when you were describing what you think we need, I was thinking in terms of professional facilitator. I was always skeptical about that sort of thing until I had to serve on a committee that had one. They can be very effective, but that's not the same thing as hiring a consultant who gives us suggestions on what we should do. My major reservation with that has always been that you're paying someone to learn Madison. And we know Madison, and we should just have that, I hate the expression, but that brain dump. And as we talk about it, I think the pertinent questions that we don't know the answers to will surface, and then we can go hire consultants or consultant with that particular expertise. So I just don't, if we, as you said, I mean, there have been lots of parking studies. We still have parking problems. And my experience has been you get buy-in at the beginning. So if we have a community representative group that's bought into the notion that something has to change, and they're open to talking about it, I think that's an important first step, more so than the consultant piece. I mean, I know there's always a feeling you hire an expert, they'll solve your problems, maybe if you're lucky. But I'm not against the consultant, and I'm very pleased to hear that there's this attention being given to our downtown. I know we've all discussed this informally. There's a great deal of concern about it. I just don't want to end up with another study that gathers dust, and instead of something that gets implemented.
Certainly, my conversation with the DDC, I've been pushing to move quickly, and I think we need to do it. Very valid points about a consultant. If you don't know the questions, you're not going to get the answers you need. So you've got to, but we can't afford to take a year to get these questions. We need to move quickly. If we're going to put a group together, we've got to recognize the talent and expertise we already have on the DDC, complement it with others, make a decision, figure out what these questions are. Right now, we have a movie theater the property's on the market. Yeah, Blue Ridge Mountain Sports, a beautiful building that should have a primo, as was pointed out, almost an anchor type of business. We have businesses that come and go because landlords either are charging more than the market can really afford and they try to make a go of it, or we're just attracting the wrong businesses. We need to know who we are and where we're going, and we need to do it quickly. So let's put the group together and decide what are the questions and get them answered. Pat and then Ben.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think sort of time being coming of the essence, it'll be hard with just a group of volunteers because I think the amount of time they can dedicate. I mean, I sat on the DDC for a year. I saw a lot of things they're working on, but they just take a lot of time to bring to fruition because people only have part of their time to work on these things. And I think there's going to be a lot of research that's going to have to be done in terms of going around and interviewing as many of the landlords and merchants as possible, also talking to people who've had businesses in town and left or tried to bring businesses into town and did not, and understand why, do market studies of other towns and what's successful in those areas and possibly why. And I'm not sure at the end of the day we're going to have enough time with even a big group of people, which then becomes a management issue, to get all that done. So I think we can start with a committee, but I think ultimately we're going to need to bring a professional in to do a lot of the work in a more accelerated fashion.
Yeah, I just want to be clear. I'm not suggesting that we have a committee that meets occasionally and spends a year trying to figure out what a good question is. I think we can move very quickly and should. And DDC obviously has a core group of people who've gone this far and are concerned and interested. And I think enhancing them, as I'd indicated earlier, should not slow us down. If it does, we have the wrong chair. And we just have to say, look, the time is of the essence. You have whatever you decide is fair, 60 days. Come back to us with questions that you think are pertinent to solving our problem, and then we'll see about the appropriate consultants.
I would agree. 60 days, I think, is reasonable time to get moving. So DDC meets this Thursday. So we'll, Oster, you'll be there, and I'll be.
I won't be there.
I'll be there. I'll be there.
Okay,
so I will bring the message back from the council as to the direction and that we are supportive of the concept. But we want to make sure it is value for the dollar. We're asking the right things, and that we have people at the table to decide that.
In my experience with consultants, if you don't ask them specific questions, they'll come back to you with the answer that you have a lot of problems. You need to keep hiring us so we can solve your problem.
Right.
So we need to really frame the issue. It's really get some value.
And I think the more important thing is, show us where you've been successful in the past in a similar type of community. What their issues were, what you did to turn them around. If you can't find somebody who's a reasonable fit for what we think, at least is our starting point, that's not going to probably be the right fit. We don't need somebody learning on our dime.
No.
Good. So you can take that back. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. 2016 capital budget.
Why do I have the 2015? There we go. And I brought the wrong one. Or did I?
Did you, or did they just mislabel it on there?
I don't know.
Let's see what I got here. Look at something.
Thank you, Mayor. This will be kind of a two-step process. I'll introduce and talk about financials. Bob Vogel will talk about specific capital projects. There's a report being passed around. Some of the report, the first few pages are more educational, so take a look at them. If you have any questions, let me know. But enclosed is a 5-year capital plan. As it's said in the memo, no decisions are to be made this evening. Additional capital information will be provided by the department heads in January and February, along with consultants that'll be delivering information on critical assets. The goal of this draft is really to have a preliminary discussion on how much capital funding is needed. That's kind of helps us with the budget process for 2016. Answer any questions that you might have about capital items that are listed on here. And then make the council aware of some large capital projects in 2017 and beyond. Bob Vogel's here to talk about engineering stuff, and I'll jump in real briefly after he's done to talk about or to point out just a couple of things that are on there from some of the other departments. To go, and before we get into Bob's presentation, I did it so everybody could have their little take-home. The very first page has a lot of verbiage on it, but it talks about the general capital fund. We have a current fund which does our municipal operating budget that pays for all of our staff and and all the operations and the garbage pickup and the sewer. This is the capital fund. It's a separate account that we have that manages our capital. When the council votes on the budget in February, March, April timeframe, and when they hear it, authorize it, and adopt it, they have listed in that document some capital items, but still later on in the year, you'll actually see ordinances that come and vote to fund those items. So when they pass the municipal operating budget, they're not passing specific items of funding for capital, whether it be purchasing a truck or repairing a road. So this explanation here shows the inflows and outflows of this bank account, if you will, what comes and goes. And I'm not going to go into detail, but I just want to point out to council the very bottom number under estimated for 2015 is that at the end of this year, we're estimating the general capital fund to have $1.6 million in it. For the residents to understand is the relationship between the general capital fund and the operating fund. The council clearly understands it, but I just wanted to bring it to your attention that if you look at page 2, you'll see the general capital fund. This little section right here is what we just had on page 1, and then down below here is the summary of our actual municipal budget. And I circled 2 items. You'll see that under general capital fund budget appropriation, and then you'll see under the summary of revenue and appropriations, capital improvement fund. What does that mean? That means how much money the council is deciding out of the current operating budget to take out of revenue and to put aside for future capital funding. And every year they make a decision to put money aside, and that's kind of what we're going to start in that discussion this evening. Last year it was $3.053 million, and the year before that it was $3.5 million. But you can just see the relationship between the municipal budget and the general capital fund, and it's important to know that. Page 3 and page 4 talk, and I'm not going to get too deep into this, but they talk about how much does the borough invest annually in capital. People are always asking that. Clearly you're seeing a lot of capital items that are going on. And it's not easy because, as some of the people in the strategic planning, both in capital budget, will tell you, there's easy numbers to find in the budgets, but then there's a lot more to it. For example, our electric utility linemen probably work 50% to 75% of the time on capital items, on building and maintaining our infrastructure. That's capital, so you could really count all their salary to that, but we don't want to get so detailed and so complex. But what I did was put together this presentation here, which talks about, or this slide here, which talks about kind of a better way of looking at how much does the borough invest annually in capital. And I think the most appropriate way, and most CFOs would say the most appropriate way, is to look at what do they appropriate annually in capital projects. During the course of the year, they will vote, let's spend $1 million on roads, let's spend $500,000 on the sewer system. So how much do they appropriate in the year for actual capital items, and then how much is in debt service? Debt service is funding capital that's already been purchased and or acquired or maintained. For example, the renovation to this building, the public safety complex, fire trucks that have been in the past funded through capital, so through debt, I should say. So page 3 has 2 little circled lines, and so I think it's best and most appropriate to use the combination of debt service and improvement authorizations. So in your little take-home, if you want to study it, you can see line 6 and line 8 here are highlighted. That's improvement authorizations and debt service. That comes to line 9 here, which is total capital expenditure. It's basically the addition of line 6 and line 8. And you can see since 2008, the council or the town has invested annually in capital anywhere from $3.2 million to $5.8 million a year in capital. So it's just a way to kind of look at it. Page 4 just shows it graphically, how much is spent annually, and shows that a little bit bigger. So now we get to the educational portion of your evening is over, but we'll talk more about the actual 5-year capital plan. Page 5 is a summary of what Bob Vogel, the police department, the electric utility, the fire department, the library, the water utility, and Public Works have all put together as what we think is our projection of our 5-year capital needs. There's a lot of movement in this, and I'll be honest with you, years 4 and 5 get a little squishy. But we feel comfortable that the items that are listed on there are going to be things that are going to be needed to be taken care of. So you'll see $1.255 million in road reconstruction, and over 800,000 in milling and overlay and lots and sidewalks. We did talk a little bit about that at the last council meeting. All of these individual lines here, road reconstruction, if you flip to the next page, there's a road reconstruction 5-year. If you look at library, if you flip probably to somewhere around page 14, 15, maybe 16, page 16, you'll see what the library is kind of thinking they need. So with that, I'm going to have Bob Vogel come up here and talk about some specific things. But since I'm up here, I'm going to point to some big numbers. And I was talking to some elected officials today about this. You can see 3.7 is kind of our estimate for this year, but the following 2 years get a lot bigger. And if you look at it, you can see there's some significant spending in road reconstruction, some significant spending increases in stormwater system. Bob will talk about that. And then if you were to look specifically, and we're not going to dwell too much on it, but if you look specifically at the fire department line, you'll see 2018, 19, and 20. If you went to that specific page, you'd see we're talking about funding some major fire equipment, some major fire trucks. Decision doesn't need to be made today, doesn't even need to be made this year, but I just want to make council aware that Lou DeRosa, the fire chief, thinks that that's what we're going to need in capital in the out years. So when Lou comes in for his department head hearing, that's the time to ask him those questions and grill him a little bit about those capital items. Also in the police department, what's not really readily seen, but you can see the numbers in 2018, 19, and 20 increase significantly. And that's because they have a major expenditure. Let's see the police department's page 12. They have a major expenditure of a 911 desk equipment upgrade of $700,000 that they're expecting to spend over a 3-year period. So if you were to flip to page 12, you'd see that. I just want to bring those kind of couple big, major, non-engineering items to your attention. Now, Bob Vogel will be here to talk about road reconstruction, milling and overlay, stormwater system, sanitary, and building, and everything on the top section there. Probably both a focus of 2016 in terms of do you have any questions, because we're moving that way. And then there's some projects that Bob has in the out years, specifically Elmer, Culvert, and Bellow, that I think he needs to talk to you about specifically. So any questions for me?
Rob?
I don't see anything for the Early Trade Museum. Should that be listed in here?
That tends to get funded through open space, and there's a lot of kind of open space / question marks, and that should be a question mark. So if we were to flip to,
It isn't listed.
so let's put it in as a question mark under open space. There are a lot of possible projects on page 15 for open space, and clearly we need to have the Museum of Early Trades and Crafts in there. So thank you, Rob. We'll do that. And I'll get, because I know they have a capital plan, we'll include the number of years and what their expected or hopeful needs are.
We're good.
Rob, you done? Jim? I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm back.
One quick question. Are we picking up any additional debt service next year from the joint meeting?
That was already picked up this year. So, I'm sorry. It's not reflected in the numbers that you're looking at, because that actually has 2014, but the 2015 budget did have environmental infrastructure trust debt, of which we'll be paying off again this year. The total debt service dollar amount doesn't really change much at all from last year to this year.
Okay.
So I've got a big spreadsheet on that if anybody wants to dive in on that.
Thank you.
Astrid?
Oh, thank you. And what about the metering that we were talking about at the electric and water utilities?
So we've talked about that. We talked about that today. Thank you for bringing that up, Austri. We don't have it on here, but we certainly anticipate it coming. We are this evening hopefully voting on an appropriation for a $35,000 fund appropriation for what we'll call a pilot program for some meters. And from there, if it goes well, we'll certainly be modifying this document in the out years. We were thinking it could be 2018, but then actually in our conversations today, it could be as soon as next year, where we would increase the amount of funding for that would be in the utilities for the metering.
One more
go ahead.
question. So it looks like on page 3, the ending balance from capital expenditures is about $1.6 million. Right, on 2015?
Yep, yes.
So, we're saying we're going to commit a lot of money, and we're very ambitious, but do we have the resources to actually carry it out?
That is,
And that's a problem. I mean,
that I think is probably the question of the night. That's an excellent question. Thank you for bringing it up. We do need to be working with Bob and sitting here and saying, okay, we can't bite off more than we can chew. What's the point of putting money aside, putting over $3 million aside if we only spent 2.729? If everyone looks at 2015 estimate, just above the 1.6 that Ashi noted is 2.729. That's what we actually committed in appropriation funds, but we set aside over $3 million. So we're not even spending what you all are setting aside. So we need to collectively do a better job, and we need to work with Bob on ways to make sure that we're spending. And you know, talking to Pat and others, it's easy to buy a fire truck. So that's not what we really want to focus on, or a pickup truck for DPW. That's not what we want to focus on. We want to focus on the projects that are engineering, that take some time, that require a bid, that require a long period of time to get going. But I think we need to have a serious conversation to answer your question, Austria, and that'll be over the series of the budget.
I think we need an answer for it, too, yeah.
Yes.
Ben and then Carmella.
A couple of things we talked about, but I think we had to air them out a little, as it were. One is that the numbers for the electric utility do reflect a consultant's input, and kicked up that number by about $300,000 a year, as I recall. But we don't have yet the results for the water utility, so those numbers, at best, are the minimum. And more than likely, we'll be seeing larger numbers, so just as an FYI. But the other thing is that we had talked about in the past trying to smooth out the capital budget. And this one is not all that smooth. So I think as we go through it, we had to take a look at those large capital expenditures that could be allocated over several more years than they are currently. So, for example, you have the fire engine coming in at basically the tail end of this 5-year plan, where there's, in fact, no reason not to start allocating funds for it this coming year and just put that in an escrow account or whatever as designated, so that you'd end up after 5 years having allocated the same amount of money, but it would look more like $250 to $300 a year, as opposed to going to 57 to 562. But that's just an example. I think some of that needs to happen in the entire plan.
Correct. And if I could add to that, some of the conversations that hopefully will unfold during the department head hearings is Chief Lewis saying he wants a new rescue truck in 2020. That's after 25 years. Is that something that's needed in 25, or can it go to 30 and then you pre-fund that over a longer period of time? I do want to bring up what Ben pointed out. I think most of the council knows, but we had a consultant come in to talk about our electric utility. We have 2 main substations. Each substation has 2 major transformers in there that convert the energy over. And what's the good news is we have an excellent system that's really well designed, that has backup, where we could run on only half of each substation and power the entire town, or run on one substation and the other station not even be operational. So we're very fortunate to have a very hardened and robust electric distribution system, but it will require some replacement. And this consultant brought to our attention that in about 8 to 10 years, we're going to want to replace half of one of our substations, and that's a $3 million commitment. So in this budget here, we have started to reserve this year $300,000 a year for that, figuring 8 to 10 years. That gets us to our dollar amount. So when Michael comes in, we'll be talking more about that, and we'll present a little more information from that particular report. But thanks for bringing that up, Ben.
Carmella and then Pat.
Yeah, I want to just go back to a point that Ben made about electric utility and water utility. One of the things that we had talked about at the Utility Advisory Committee is the needs of both of those utilities, and I think water probably needs a lot more help than we've been giving it, actually. So my intent is this week I'm meeting with the both of the superintendents of both of the utilities to kind of go over these numbers. because I really truly believe that there's probably some additions that have to be taken into consideration here. So, and we have the Utility Advisory Committee that's going to be making some recommendations as far as the water utility is concerned, and whether or not we need another water tank. And that's another $1.5 million that we're going to have to consider. So, Ben, you're right. Those two numbers are going to move, I believe. And there's lots of projects that we have to talk about besides the smart meters and whatever is the self-generation that is going to come into play. So we need to be very careful. Mike is very good about what he needs to do as far as his capital project. There he goes, 15 at least, right? But I think that somewhere along the line we have to develop that reserve for those future projects that are going to be absolutely necessary. So it's going to be an interesting week to try and find out what the leaders of those two utilities have to say.
Pat?
Yeah, just to follow on about the electric. I mean, I've expressed this to Jim. My concern is in 2017, although we're saying we're setting aside $760,000, $400,000 of it is for a bucket truck, which when we did the capital analysis that Martin's committee did, that was not included in that. That was part of the general capital. And then there's $300,000 that we're setting aside. But when you subtract those two, plus the meters, plus two projects that really are not supporting the current electrical system, we're really down to $0 that are being spent in the capital budget towards the electric utility. So I understand Michael has some money in his operating budget, but I think we really need to get a better insight as to how much of that is and reflect that on here somewhere so we can see truly how much we're adding to the capital budget for the electric utility especially. I think we also need to start to, some things like the E-well transformer for this year show $30,000 in the electric. I mean, that's really, to me, a water utility project, and it should be reflected there. And I would like to see both the utility budgets set up so that we separate equipment from the general utility infrastructure itself, because I think when the utility committee did their analysis, they strictly based it on wires and pipes. They didn't really look at and the equipment that was needed to support it, but not necessarily all the vehicles. And so we do spend a lot of money on them, but they're not really enhancing the infrastructure itself or repairing the infrastructure. Thank you.
Take a note. Yeah.
Yep, I'm done.
All right. Any other comments? Okay, Bob?
Everyone? Okay, so Jim thinks the engineering nitty-gritty is interesting. I kind of think the finance and the projections is kind of interesting too. So we'll have to go back and forth on this a little bit. I absolutely agree about the water utility issues that Carmela had brought up earlier as well. I think that we do need help, and I think that small items like needing an additional treatment plant, perhaps at A or E, some of that depends on federal regulation. Sometimes a federal regulation is passed, and additional regulations are thrust upon us, and they're not inexpensive to deal with. And so we do get our share of surprises on that end. And, when I got here, we had a reserve for filtration set up for the water department, and that we expended with the completion of D-well treatment plant. But the fact remains we do have E-well, which is in process right now, getting redeveloped and getting some improvements made to it. And ultimately, if there's a VOC hit there, we're going to have to talk about treatment at that location too. Down at North Street, another possibility. So every once in a while, these surprises can come up and get you. And I think having a reserve is for treatment and for other anticipated expenses, which a lot of them were identified during the strategic planning process, makes a great deal of sense. And again, there's an argument between do we bond or do we reserve, and not really sure what the answer to that is, but I think setting aside reserves is a good idea in one way or another. So as far as 2015 was concerned, I just wanted to give you a brief rundown, a recap of where we are, how much we were able to spend, if that becomes an issue. As far as the roads were concerned, we managed to expend $1 million on a contract for Ridgedale Avenue. It was done in 2 phases, and according with DOT, 2 rounds of funding. Cifelli & Son did it under 1 contract, and we were happy to get that project finished up this year. There's still some punch list items that remain. In fact, there was about $500,000 worth of Cifelli contracts on the 2014 road program, which remained into January and February of this year as well from last year. And so that carryover money was also expended. So you'll find the carryover capital plus the current year capital really adds up to some real dollars. This past year, also $630,000 of mill and overlay expenses were expended. Morris Place, Danforth Road, Sherwood Avenue, Longview, Candlewood Road, Fox Chase Road, Woodland Avenue, and Noe Avenue. And again, most of the signage and striping is done on all those mill and overlay projects. We're essentially complete. Had a good year as far as road expenditures. We were slightly over last year's anticipated budget because we had a couple of emergent issues with Noe being a road that simply did not have the pavement duration that was necessary. It was paved 5 or 6 years ago, and it really was in distress. And since we did have capital money that we could carry over from a prior mill and overlay program, we decided to move forward and pave Noe while we had 2014 money left over as well. So it was a good year for resurfacing roads as far as mill and overlay was concerned. As far as paving parking lots were concerned, Waverly Green also got finished just before Bottle Hill Day, which was nice. That Waverly Green money was actually carryover from 2014 as well. So we're managing to get a lot of old capital projects or carryover capital projects. There was ordinances appropriated between 2010 and 2014. A lot of that money was expended this year. So it was a very productive year on the whole if you combine the current year capital with prior year's capital. The Madison Free Public Library is one of our buildings. We had a $649,500 contract with the CESA for 5 new rooftop air conditioning units and a ceiling project that the library had requested. So finally we got the design completed. It was bid 3 times. And so on the 3rd try, we actually were able to negotiate a decent contract with a decent contractor. And within 8 weeks, they were able to get the library back up and running, and they remain so today, despite a fair number of completion items and punch list items that have to be attended to. So that contract won't be finished up until January.
But Bob, if you can try to make a quicker overview, because we're at...
It'll be all night?
Yeah, thank you.
Why don't we jump to 2016?
We haven't started 2016
yet.
So, again, if you want to just glance through sanitary sewer lining projects, storm sewer projects, parks and rec projects, Dodgefield basketball lighting was a good recreation project that was also completed. Well E got a lot of attention this year from various funding sources. And essentially the recap that I come up with, and again, Jim would have to confirm this through the accounting system, but 2015 work expended totaled about $2 million. And carryover capital from the prior 4 years, so we expended about $1.9 million, so productive there. And with the Open Space Trust Fund, we had some money as well, which we expended during this past year. So overall, it seemed like we did between...
Now your slides are a little behind you, so sorry. All right.
So as far as 2016 is concerned, our state aid project, which we wanted to apply for funding for and did so this year, was Prospect Street. That would be from Woodland to Kings. We estimated for the DOT application that $550,000 was required. We got surveys done through Almond Engineering, and they're in design process right now, hoping to have that design done in late January, early February, so that we can submit to the state and get all our ducks in a row for a hopeful award from perhaps $250,000 from state aid for that Prospect Street project. Other reconstruction projects include Kinney and West, Cross and Cottage, and they're kind of grouped together here on this map, if you see it. We have roads grouped as Kinney and West, Cross and Cottage, Crescent, and Lewanika Terrace. They are full reconstruction projects. We'll have an informal public hearing on those in mid-January or early February. And then the mill and overlay locations, which we would add, and are also shown on the map behind me. Parkside and Court, Hillcrest and Highview, Union and Essex, Seven Oaks, and the MRC Access Road, finally, which has been waiting to get paid for several years now. A great suggestion that we've made previously was including a certain number of maintenance contracts on our mill and overlay appropriation. Those maintenance contracts are generally cross town signage, striping, curving as needed, sidewalk replacement contracts, crack sealing contracts. We're going to add the paver replacements onto the mill and overlay appropriation this year as well. But it's nice because it gives us a fair amount of flexibility in terms of contracting and awarding contracts, and waste less time in the contracting process. So really, I think is a big lift for David, DPW, and any contracts assisting their activities. Our total 2016 road program proposals. On this page would be $1.9 million, and that brings us to storm sewers. I think one of the questions that Jim had was we have some projects that have been difficult to implement for a number of reasons. Below Woods Stabilization Project is a storm sewer or a channel stability project, which has been in the pipeline for, I would say, 5 years, since Irene and Sandy had blown through and provided some damage to adjoining residences. We've been seeking hazard mitigation grant funding from FEMA, and we're unsuccessful finally in getting that hazard mitigation grant funding. FEMA had essentially told us that the project didn't have enough public and private property damage to qualify. Because the county had initially given us very good input that it was an eligible project when we submitted to them 5 years ago. So after 4 years of trying with FEMA, we came up short on funding, and so we essentially have a project which has been designed, requires DEP permits this year, which is part of why we're asking for the $35,000, but it's essentially a $350,000 project. And the question becomes, do we want to go it alone? Do we want to continue to seek funding for that project? Do we want to reduce the scope of that project? So it becomes interesting. There's a few decisions that we have to make along the way. And ultimately, I think somewhere between $200,000 and $350,000, we can do what's really necessary in Below Woods Park to stabilize that stream.
Bob, one question about the permits. How long are they good for?
5 years.
So if we don't do the work within 5 years, we're starting over?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
This Elmer Street project. We're asking for $30,000 worth of, again, DEP permitting that's necessary on what is a $800,000 project in total. This was designed by T&M Associates several years ago, and essentially reestablishes a culvert which had collapsed in an emergency a few years ago, and we had the design done. It was complicated by the fact that we required easements and permits. Although the DEP 5 years ago was willing to allow us to proceed on an emergency basis, they're not going to let us do that any longer. And so we would actually have to submit for permits this year. At the same time, we should be trying to acquire easements and access agreements with the affected property owners. Essentially, the first phase of that project can be done for $400,000, but again, the appropriation asking that they ask this year is essentially for permits and easement work to be done. I could go on all night with some of this stuff, but you can see now we're right. Elmer Street culvert actually. Sorry. The Elmer Street culvert actually runs underneath a multi-story residence, and so that, I think, abandoning that in place and running around that residence would obviously be a preferential for both the owner and for the borough. But it is a complicated process.
And as these projects come forward, we'll have more detail on them. Okay.
More?
Probably too much already.
Yes, that was my hint, yes.
Got it. Spring Garden Brook, another permitting process with DEP. It's been designed 3 or 4 years ago, a stabilization project. We've done phase 3. This would be phase 4 of Spring Garden stabilization, mostly riprap improvements along the stream. This particular phase is concentrated down by the bridge which runs across from the park over to Delbarton Drive. And so, again, we have preliminary designs done. We just don't have the permits in hand, and the ask for this year would be to get the money to apply for the permits.
But Bob, we're not showing the actual project money being appropriated until 2019?
Is that for Spring Garden?
For Spring Garden Brook
it's
Phase 4.
It's the lowest priority of the stormwater projects that we have, Pat.
Okay. Well, no, I understand that. I'm just saying to spend $30,000 this year for permits that we're not going to use for 3 years if they're only good for 5 seems premature.
Perhaps. The DEP's a funny organization sometimes, and last time we talked to them about this, they wanted to turn it into an individual permit, which is kind of a walk-away scenario for us. It's just, it's going to take 5 years and way too much money. It's going to take as much money to get the permit process done as it is to actually construct the project.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like to know earlier rather than later if we're going to abandon that work or whether we should pursue it. And I guess that's the reason I put it on the list. If you want to hold off for a year, I don't see a problem.
Well, I also don't see the actual line item for the $30,000 either.
Oh, is that right? It's not on there?
No.
Okay. Other projects that run down as far as stormwater improvements include the Greensting intersection, which is right out in front of this building here. We have surcharging in the manholes. There's a number of pipes that have to be redesigned and reoriented. That project should require some design work, and we'll put a set of bid documents together in the coming year. New Jersey Transit has a number of railroad culverts with arch linings, which I'm sure the mayor's one of them is right next to the YMCA, and so he's aware of a couple of those projects. Those lining projects are $50,000 each, and we need New Jersey Transit's participation in order to make them real and move forward. The DPW did some single-street drainage improvements, adding inlets and pipe to 3 streets this year. I'd like to do 3 more in the coming year, so that's probably on the ask list as well in the short term. As far as our sanitary sewer projects are concerned, in the upper left-hand corner you can see a picture of Candlewood Pump Station. We managed to get our soft start controls, our comminutor, and our final pump installed there this year. So there won't be any future asks for Candlewood. On the lower left-hand corner, you can see a picture of a sanitary sewer lining project, which was accomplished this year. Some of those sanitary sewers were in very degraded condition and really came up to many levels of improved condition during the lining process this year, and we have to continue that. So that's another ask for the capital program. On the right-hand side, you see the work that was done by the electric utility and DPW in terms of putting primary electric in at North Street Pump Station. This allows North Street Pump Station to go to redesign and a final bid of the project, which we hope to be in bid condition early spring and award a contract before the summer. That will complete North Street Pump Station's work. Because of the work that was done in-house, it's going to allow us to afford to go a little bit beyond the scope that was originally anticipated for North Street, whereas we were going to be able to get pumps replaced with dry pit submersibles, which was not in the original scope of the project 5 or 6 years ago. So it's really good news all the way around for North Street, and I'm really looking forward to having that done. As far as water projects are concerned, lower left-hand corner, you can see E-well. A lot of work that was done. That motor was removed. The pump and actually both motors. There's an electric motor there and a gas motor, which were both removed in the lower left-hand corner. They're back in place now. The gas motor is gone. There's a new electric genset on the way, and obviously the pump was replaced, which was the subject of an emergency appropriation a month ago. Second picture there you can see at E-well is a genset pad, which was recently poured. The third picture on the right is the crane that was reinstalling the pumps in the well site. E-well will continue to get some attention in the coming year, but I hope to go for redevelopment work over at North Street Pump Station on the well there as well. And again, as Carmela stated, we'd like to do more future planning as far as the water utility is concerned. We have a current contract with Hatmach McDonald, who is looking programmatically at all the water facilities. They'll be doing a critical components review for us, trying to prioritize our targets for the coming year. And again, hopefully that information comes to us in January so that we can be reassured that our capital program for the short term is a good one. And we can add certain projects to the long term. Sidewalk and curbing, obviously 2015 was a very bad winter. We had a tremendous impact on the commercial business downtown. So there's a number of downtown walk replacements that were bid this past year unsuccessfully. No award was made, and we have to go and rebid those this year. We're up to $100,000 potentially of replacement as far as resetting those blocks are concerned. So, maintaining them and putting the joint sealer and trying to keep ice off of the sidewalks during critical snowstorm events really makes a big difference in the end. And so it gets expensive to replace those pavers if they pop up in quantity. And that's the situation we seem to have today. Sidewalk replacement program, programmatic work throughout town would be at $50,000. There is a current open space trust fund. I think it was funded the Madison High School sidewalk connection with the Board of Ed. That is essentially complete, and I don't think there's more work that has to be done with that in 2016 except for paying for some asphalt. The HDM front plaza here, there's been discussions with the trustees as to how we're going to budget and award and design and award a contract for that. Don't know what the outcome of those discussions with the trustees is at this stage, but that's a potential capital item for us. But we'll talk about that as the spring arrives. And last but not least, once the plaza is in good shape, I think getting the public walks just around the Hartley Dodge Memorial Building here obviously has to be done. We got some prices for milling those sidewalks in the past year, but did not elect to do those. So replacement will be the key, and I think getting the plaza replaced before we get the sidewalks around Hartley Dodge replaced makes a little bit more sense construction-wise. So hope to get that accomplished as well. Dayton County work on the list here is the last remaining county project in town for repaving is Central Avenue, and they're going to work with us to get the traffic calming improvements between Ridgedale and Fairview completed and repaved with their participation. Okay. Again, as far as Harley Dodge is concerned, there's an underground storage tank. We've had some contamination which has been gone through with Joe Sorgi as an environmental consultant. We've had several different consultants added over the years, still have not been able to close that project out as far as either deed restriction or a complete cleanup of the remnants of underground storage tank removal. And so that will continue into the coming year. It's hoped that somewhere between $30,000 and $60,000 will satisfy the need. But again, that's a project that continues year by year for us, and it's been 20, 25 years since the underground storage tank was actually removed. So that keeps coming back. East Wing Restoration Project, Clark Caton Hintz, as you know, had come in and done some work for us as far as programming.
Be brief.
We're going. And we like to move ahead and get a restoration plan done with CCH this year. Several projects with parks remain to be done. The Bailey Ayler Danforth Fields site remediation phase 2, $200,000 was budgeted for the last year, was never appropriated. So we need to go forward and appropriate those funds in the coming year. I suspect we have to budget for them again. We had taken Open Space Trust Fund money and did a request for that early last year. We're not able to complete the project, so I'm looking forward to early spring bid. The design work is essentially done, so we'd like to put that on the street as soon as we can in the spring and move forward with that field project. As you can see, last on the list here is that letter of interpretation with the DEP. Trying to get the, going back and looking at the Strategic Planning Committee recommendations, which I've listed here as well. One of their major priorities was have consistent investment across not only roads, but stormwater and sanitary sewer and other critical aspects of our infrastructure. And I think obviously the 5-year plan is going to seek to do that, whether the short-term plan is capable of doing it or not. So we're going to look at that year to year as the 5-year plan advances. And the second committee recommendation here was make sure that the utilities, sanitary sewer system are the most critical assets to be faced. And again, we have a contract this year with Kleinfelder, who is looking overall at the entire sanitary sewer system and will be doing criticality assessments for us and then helping us rank critical projects within the sanitary sewer system, responding to those comments. And I guess on and on. There's
yeah, that was the sign-off music that was playing. So yes. All right. Quick questions for Bob.
I know.
Anything while I'm standing.
So we will be. This is an overview of the capital budget as it is projected for next year. Obviously, as we mentioned, more discussion will happen as we finalize the budget, and in particular with the particular individual projects that there'll be more detailed discussion. Any other questions or comments? All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Bob.
Okay, now we are moving on to ordinances for hearing. Will the clerk please read the statement?
The ordinance scheduled for hearing was introduced by title and passed on the first reading at a regular meeting of the council held November the 23rd, 2015. It was posted and filed according to law, and copies were made available to the general public requesting same.
I call up Ordinance 56, 2015 for a second reading and ask the clerk to read said ordinance by title.
Ordinance 56, 2015, ordinance of the Borough of Madison appropriating $35,000 from the Electric Capital Improvement Fund for an automated meter pilot program.
I open the hearing on Ordinance 56. Anyone wishing to comment, please step forward. Seeing none. Oh. Yes. You got it just under the wire, no problem.
Sandy Kulikowski, Park Avenue. You know, on the electric, this is for the meters again?
Yes.
The one thing, I know that this project has been hanging on forever, but I still want to urge you to look at the entirety of the electric utility before we go ahead with a meter project, even a pilot meter project. With the world the way it is, with utilities changing, with energy sources probably changing, with the needs of figuring out self-generation and how we can shape our load, I think we'd be better off to hold off on looking at and making sure that we get the right meter pilot project going till after we've had a more global look at what we need to do with the utility. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to be heard? Seeing none, I close the hearing.
Mayor, I'll move ordinance 56-2015.
Mr. Mayor, I'll second that motion.
Any council discussion? Rob?
So these meters are for combined water and electric, yes, or just electric?
Jim? And if you could address Sandy's comments too, if there's anything to...
It's a small pilot program that will have a number of meters that will be for the largest electric customers. So in order to shed load and manage load, it would be great if we had the data and had 15-minute increment data. So some of the meters that we'll be buying will be a test program on, we'll put them on, say, the largest 10 customers.
Just electric, not water.
And that's electric, but we are also buying communication registers that can pop onto our Neptune meters, and we'll be able to read water meters as well. So it is a dual program that will do both. It also has the handheld guns, which we'll be able to use to A, decommission the pencil and books, and B, be able to read meters from a distance.
So simple, and forgive me, but since we raised $1 million for the water for the last 5 years for water meters, why don't we fund this out of the water utility?
But as electric, because to be honest with you, probably 95% of the cost is going to be driven by the electric utility. The meters for the big, largest 10 customers are by far the most expensive. The communication caps for the water meters are not that expensive. What is expensive, and we've talked about this in the past, is when we do flight out the entire system, is the replacement of old meters, old water meters with new water meters. That is much more expensive than an electric meter where you can just pull it off and put it on. So that's
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Roll call vote.
Mr. Catalanello?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
I declare ordinance 56-2015 adopted and finally passed, and ask the clerk to publish notice thereof in the newspaper and file the ordinance in accordance with the law. And now we're on to the second of two invitations for discussion. This is when you may comment on anything. Again, please keep your comments to about 3 minutes or less. If you wish to be heard, please step up to the lectern, state your name and your address, and speak into the microphone. Yes, Mr. Gertler.
Good evening. Jeff Gertler, Pomeroy Road. Firstly, thank you, Council and Mayor, for allowing me to speak this evening, and thank you for showing up tonight as a town and hopefully supporting what I have to say tonight. In a letter I wrote and was published in the Eagle a few weeks ago and followed up with photographs the week after, I expressed what I think is a need to protect the architecturally important and older buildings in Madison. Having had the privilege to be a member of the Planning Board for many years, I've had the perspective to witness the destruction of many distinguished homes and buildings. I don't know about you, but it's painful seeing an empty site after having enjoyed seeing a beautiful home occupy the property for so many years. It occurred to me that some of these might have been saved and had we had the awareness and tools in place to do so. The results could have been different with more creativity. So why is it important to consider this? There are both cultural and economic reasons to do so, and they work hand in hand. Forgive the reach with this analogy, but if you were to ask why people travel to the most beautiful cities in the world, like, say, Paris or Rome or Venice, their answers usually include the beautiful architecture of the city, the buildings, the fountains, the beautiful charm of their streets, etc. When you tell people you live in Madison, they say it's beautiful and they all want to live here. They love the downtown, and they think the homes and neighborhoods are charming. They love the feel and authenticity of our little paradise. Yes, we do live in a beautiful town, and people do want to live here. Whether it's a major European city or a small New Jersey town, architecture attracts people and business. And one big reason why people want to live here is because of the charming feeling of the streets and neighborhoods with mature trees and buildings. We have something very special, and we need to be aware that it's fragile. It does not naturally replenish itself. I'm afraid if we keep losing the feel of Madison, we won't be able to brag about how special we are in the future. Please know that I'm not saying that we should never be able to change what is here. I totally recognize it's important that we have growth, that the population turns over, bringing in more kids for Little League Baseball and parents that make more purchases in downtown Madison. But we should strive to find a balance between saving our uniqueness and economic strength versus a total annihilation of the past, which is what is happening now. How can we accomplish this balance? The planning tools I was referring to earlier would acknowledge that if there is a property that is considered important to maintain, we would provide special allowances. By way of example, side yard encroachments are a common cause for variances. Most often, problems arise when properties that are often larger than typical for their neighborhood are subdivided and the existing house isn't located in a desirable location on the property that allows for the construction of an additional house on the site to be built without a variance. I've heard builders say that they would rather tear down a house than ask for a variance that might take several months. So, for example, what if we had the mechanism to forgive an applicant for a reasonable side yard encroachment for an existing house if it meant they could still build another one variance-free? Or if it's important to match the height of an existing house that's over the height limitations, that shouldn't be a variance either. We need a realistic and practical way to determine what is worth saving. And if they choose to restore an older significant house, there might be a tax incentive offered, the same way PSE&G and the federal government provide incentives for energy-efficient considerations. These are not far-fetched ideas. They are practical, and there are many more to consider if we have the will to move in this direction. I fully understand that people have a right to decide what to do with their properties. Some people are using the sale of their properties to fund their retirement. Others are seeking to develop the property and maximize the sale of new construction. And there are many other reasons these properties get altered. All are valid. But whatever the reason is, they need not be mutually exclusive of salvaging our past. So things don't get misinterpreted. I want to clarify what I'm not saying. I'm not saying that we should not build any more new houses. I'm not saying that we should save every old house in Madison. I'm not saying that we should not build large houses in Madison. I'm not saying that we should not subdivide properties. But what I am asking is that we raise the awareness in our beautiful community and recognize that some of the older and more significant properties are both places of cultural and economic importance. I am asking that we develop tools through zoning, planning, and economic incentives to give property owners and builders incentives to maintain and renovate these properties. I am asking that as a community, we think about what we want Madison to look like when we pass it on to our next generation. And if the answer is we want it to have similar charm and beauty as it does today, then we need to take action to make that a reality. I ask your support in formulating an action plan. Thank you very much.
Yep, thank you, Jeff. Jeff and I did have an opportunity to talk about his concerns as we serve on the planning board together, and it is very frustrating to know that there is very little we could do sitting there to save some of the historic homes. What I would like to do is very early in the new year is to put together, I guess it would call a town hall meeting type of setting, and I'll be asking experts in the field and any residents that have ideas as to experts we can bring in. You can send me a email at mayor@rosenet.org. But basically my concept would be one, probably about a 2-hour session, the first hour being educational. What are some of the things that work in other towns? What are some things that do work in Madison now that maybe we don't know? What are some things we can do for homeowners as far as how do you market a historic home versus your typical home? All sorts of things. Put it all on the table. And the second half of the session would be breaking out into groups so our residents can talk about what what works for Madison, because just because it works in a Summit or a Maplewood doesn't mean it may work in a Madison. We may need to adapt it. And how can we work that in there? We know it is always a challenge of property rights versus zoning and protecting our heritage. You can have both, just as Jeff outlined, if we do it right. So that's my plan, and again, early in the new year, we'll set that up, and I'll be looking to my colleagues for support in the people we need to bring to the table. Any other people want to comment on anything? Tom? And for the record, I did give Jeff a little more than the 3 minutes, but yeah, once he was a newcomer, so.
Okay, I don't know about that. I just want to touch on something that Jeff brought up during his presentation about some type of consideration or incentive, and I'm all for this. I haven't discussed it with anybody, so this is just my idea, but you know, we had given some consideration in the past for residents that wanted to preserve some open space. You would deed your open space as dedicated to stay that way.
Conservation easement.
Conservation easement, correct. So we know that it's much more expensive to maintain an old house. When you're trying to sell an older house, the new homeowners have to take into consideration that a renovation would cost a lot more than a new construction or renovating a newer home. So and if we're really serious about wanting to save some of the character that we have in town with the old homes, we could probably put our money where our mouth is and step up, and maybe we'd be a model town for the rest of the county. I don't know what it would cost. I don't know if there's 100 homes in town like that or 25. I don't really know, and I don't know what the impact would be, but it's something to at least talk about amongst the council. And there's enough people here who are concerned about what's happening to the older homes that you'd have some support if that was something that could also help us.
So excellent suggestion. To sit back and do nothing is not an option. Anyone else wishing to be heard on any topic? Yes. Welcome, Bob.
Bob Jennings, Albright Circle. Last month I sent a communication about the use of the East Wing by the Board of Education. I think everyone got a copy of that. Excuse me. From a 10,000 feet perspective, I can't understand why that can't happen or isn't happening or hasn't happened. In other words, the moving of the administrative offices of the board to the East Wing, the vacant area in the East Wing. Excuse me.
We certainly have had in the Shared Services Committee meetings discussions over the years, even dating back to prior to the renovation of this building. The offer, until we find a new purpose for the East Wing, the offer to the Board of Education is there, and we welcome any further discussions. To date, they have not been interested in moving their offices from Woodland into this building. There are some challenges as to which entity bears the cost of the renovations.
A good point, Mayor. One of the questions I had was, does it matter to the taxpayer who bears the cost? Whether it's the board or the county or the borough?
Yeah, certainly if it's a priority for the town, yeah, it's the same, as we often pointed out, it's the same wallet. But
okay.
We can't force the issue. It's a board.
But is there an issue, I guess, is my question. If it doesn't matter to the taxpayer, okay, and there may be benefits in terms of acquiring board property for a free exchange. And what are the options? I mean, you have a vacancy here. We talked about vacancies downtown. Isn't there a connection? And you folks are in charge of that vacancy.
We certainly will open the conversations again and just see what are the other hurdles that the Board of Education faces. Ray, do you have anything to add that has...
Concern previously from the board was that that's
Microphone. Wait a second.
The building is not handicap accessible on that side, and that was one of the major challenges. Also, when we did the main section of this building and the west wing, there was significant asbestos exposed within the walls that was not present and visible. We anticipate, and their review by their architect and their engineering analysis was that the same situation is present in the other wing of the building. So the combination of the magnitude of the capital expenditure didn't warrant what it would take for them to relocate from Woodland to here.
Ray, that means the space is going to remain vacant forever?
No.
Yeah, we would eventually take on those challenges if.
Well, can that be communicated to the board? I attended a board meeting Tuesday, I guess it was, and there was some angst expressed over the fact that the borough's demands seemed inappropriate, and they were looking for a counteroffer. And I guess one of my missions here today is to see if we can get a counteroffer going. And I did suggest to them, too, that the experience in Chatham, has anyone looked into the experience in Chatham? The board was in an old, similar structure on Main Street, and now the board is in the municipal building at Chatham Township. Yep. Chatham can do it, we can do it.
So we'll take it back to the Shared Services Committee and just and see if there's, what are the hurdles, and we'll outline and see if we can overcome them.
Okay. And the other kind of news piece of information I got at the board was there's some consideration that they're going to build their own building on the campus at the high school. I mean, that's a topic of, and from, again, a taxpayer standpoint, what kind of sense does that make?
It's a valid point.
I see, we had themes about teamwork here earlier, like 2 hours and 20 minutes ago. Here we go, team, let's go, It's very disconcerting from, again, I'm speaking from 10,000 feet. And I'm getting down a little closer than 10,000 feet. And I'm sensing a lack of teamwork.
We've worked well together, so we'll have that discussion. Yep.
Can we look forward to any time frame on that?
Our Shared Services Committee is due for another meeting. We will probably not get it between now and the end of the year, but so January will be most likely the next.
Is that meeting open to the public?
No.
I think that another main theme, and this is my last point, I think opening this process up to the public, identifying what the borough's offer is to the board, and having the board respond, I think would be helpful in terms of creating some teamwork.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to be heard? Chris?
Chris Kellogg, 3 Walnut Street. Jeff's presentation was eloquent and I think leads the way. I'm concerned, though, that this town hall meeting and these various meetings that we're going to conduct in town, which will be very productive and could be very useful, are going to be slow and they're going to take time. And then if they involve ordinances, we're going to be going through that process. And so I'm wanting to encourage there to be a number of fronts upon which we conduct this attempt to salvage what's left. So for all of those that came tonight that are concerned about the historic character of our town, I encourage you to continue to communicate through me and Jeff and others on a local grassroots level, to continue to come and show up at planning board and zoning board meetings where neither one of those boards seem quite capable of saying much except yes to many of the things that go on in town. So we need to have a grassroots response that is tailored and connected with and coordinated with a more borough-wide discussion and town hall meeting. They're going to go fast, the stuff. And we could even see the downtown start to get rumbled up. If you get some developers in here that are bigger than the folks that are going to tear down the Dridgedale house, you get some big guys in here, they'll take some buildings downtown. I mean, they'll just move in, big money talks. So we need to look at this issue long term, but we also have to maintain a kind of a strength at the grassroots, and we have to keep talking and trying to get this together. So now at this grassroots level, we've started something, and I hope we can continue it. At the level where the borough is going to help us to have these town hall dialogues, I would really hope we can get the developers in here, especially the local developers. One of the disadvantages that we all have as residents is we come in here into a planning board meeting, and we've just now heard about this demolition potential. We don't have experts, we don't have lawyers, we don't have money. So the system in some ways is rigged for the developers. We have to respond too quickly and too slowly from the other end. So I really want to get the developers, and we have some local developers here in town that don't seem to care that much about the history of Madison, but if we could get them in a dialogue, just like Jeff said, there's no reason here to restrict developments, just let it be an open dialogue. So developers, residents, and our volunteer boards can all kind of collaborate on a way that a beautiful old structure might be able to be saved by some clever, creative thinking, reuse, easements, variances that Jeff mentioned, or lack of variances. So, I just hope we can work together and keep the grassroots level working for now to try to save what we can, and then have the borough help us to develop strategies going forward for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. And it's certainly a key point that this process only works when there's people from all sides providing information that while it never came to fruition, which was the shade tree ordinance, before the shade tree management board presented that to the council, they had sat down with developers to get their input. So it will be very important. And just to clarify a statement, as Chris mentioned, the frustration that the planning board had on not being able to vote no, and it's not that they didn't want to save the homes. When it's a conforming subdivision, there's very little legal basis to vote no just to save a historic home where we stand now. Hopefully, maybe in the very near future that can change, but where we stand now, they had nothing to base it on. Anyone else wishing to be heard? Seeing none, I close this part of the meeting, and we move on to. There are no introduction ordinances because this is the last meeting of the year. You're leaving so soon. Thank you all. Have a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year. As your way out. If you can, we still have some business to conduct, so if you can keep the noise down. May I have the statement? Let me have the consent agenda resolution statement, please.
Consent agenda resolutions will be enacted with a single motion.
Meeting's still going on, please. Okay, take two.
Consent agenda resolutions will be enacted with a single motion. Any resolution requiring expenditure is supported by a certification of availability of funds. Any resolution requiring discussion will be removed from the consent agenda. All resolutions will be reflected in full in the minutes.
So, Mayor, I move consent agenda resolutions R327 through R345.
I second.
Any council discussion or any that need to be pulled? Three?
I have a question, but
Yeah, we had the 3:30. There were some questions about the grant, the Grotto Fund grant. Do we want to move? Does that need to be pulled, or are we okay with that?
I apologize. I just need clarification from our previous discussion.
Correct. That's good.
Wait, I can't hear anything.
This is Resolution 330, which related to the Health Department applying. This is not a contract matter, but a Health Department applying for the $35,000 grant through the Grotto Fund. There was a discussion on that as to whether they had the ability to, the manpower to deliver on that grant or not.
So are we going to pull that and have a separate discussion?
We can pull that, and then we can, if
Maybe we should. They've already applied for the grant, and I think that's the issue. without involvement from the governing body. The board is meeting on the 16th, on Wednesday, to decide whether the grant is approved. So what the Board of Health has asked is in advance of that vote and in not being aware that they'd applied, that we would pass a resolution accepting the grant conditioned upon the fact of this foundation awarding the grant at their meeting on the 16th. So the question is, do you want them to...
Technically, this grant is due tomorrow, December 15th. So
So how are they going to meet
the
on
Board
the
of Health is
16th?
going to hear it, I think, a little bit late, too.
If you
as
don't
well.
act tonight, they don't get the grant. So
Right.
it's basically
Yeah.
it's dead in the water. So
Yeah.
the question is, do you want to...
It's
have them-
subject to the formal approval of the funder. So, I
And
don't
the-
know, but
and
there's going to be a lot
The
of...
funder of the grant has given 5 names of consultants.
Yes, the foundation has recommended, we will give you a grant. Here's our list of pre-approved consultants. If we give you the grant, we want you to hire one of them to do this survey, complete your work by June 30th, and then that presumably would open up the foundation, depending on the work product, to further additional support down the road.
Is the $35,000 just to cover the consultant?
Yes.
Okay, so
So they wouldn't sign a contract for no more than $35,000?
Correct.
and it's no manpower draw on.
And there's no further commitment beyond doing that initial study?
That's correct. That's the point. I mean, maybe Ben has more.
No, I don't. But, the concern again is that whatever comes back is obviously going to require some additional effort to fulfill. And so you don't have to go too far down that path to realize that it's going to result in some things that we're not opining on tonight.
No, it's going to come back that the seniors are going to say, we want transportation not stopping at 2:30. We want it going into the evening hours so we can come to council meetings and go to social events and other things. So you're prepared for the survey is going to look to expand the
Yeah.
reach of the health department. That's just my personal opinion.
Right. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
Yep, you can.
Some of the things might be just minor,
Yes.
that wouldn't cost any money or any expenditure of additional manpower,
But
maybe.
part of the grant request is that the mayor signs a pledge. So let's pull this one. I'll read. We'll vote on the consent. I'll read the pledge and then we'll go from there. So we'll pull 330, and so the motion is for the consent minus 330. Any further discussion?
I second the motion.
Any further discussion? Nope. Roll call vote.
Mr. Catalanello?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
All right, may I have a motion for Resolution 330?
So moved.
Second.
All right, so the pledge.
On to the
To make our city work, I, Mayor, pledge to make the Borough of Madison a city successful for aging, and to make our city work for older adults, I will take the following steps to ensure that the well-being of our aging population is addressed by each department, agency, and division in our city government. Make our city safe, affordable, and comfortable for our older citizens. To provide older adults access to resources promoting health and wellness, support employment, entrepreneurship, education, other services to make our older residents more financially secure, offer housing options that suit the varied needs of our older population, improve access to transportation and mobility options for older adults. To provide opportunities for older adults to work for our city, I will promote the engagement of older residents in volunteer and paid roles that serve the needs of our citizens and residents. Call upon higher education workforce development programs to help older adults refresh their skills, train, transition to a new stage of work focused on strengthening our city. Recognize older residents as an asset for our city and celebrate their contributions to improving the lives of all generations. You know, some of the things we do already, such as housing, and some are new challenges. So that's the pledge. Carmela?
Yeah, the Grotto Fund grant is got a good basis because it's talking about our senior population, of course. But if you look at the resolution, okay, it's a 3-year action plan, and with the potential of additional funding for programs and community support. Now, on Senior Citizen Advisory Committee, there's various groups from Downtown Development Commission, Rotary, Library. I'm trying to think what else is there. I believe, from what I understand, that there was, a gathering of some of those people that represented some of those organizations, and I believe that they think that possibly they can get additional funding if it's needed from those organizations. I think it's kind of a little bit difficult, but this is a 3-year action plan anyway. So I don't know much to say about it because I don't know that much about it. We did ask some questions. And Ben, you don't know anything at this point either about it. Yeah.
Not.
The grant occurred very quickly. The whole thing came up very quickly.
It
and
did.
They've been processing it very quickly.
Pat?
So since you're going to sign the pledge, do you have any concerns with it?
Is it binding?
Sounds like a lot more work for you, Bob.
Well, it's, yeah, I'm certainly concerned the amount of times it says aye. Obviously, as I said, some of these things are, on the surface, it sounds scary, make our city safe, affordable, and comfortable for older residents. We probably have one of the strongest senior housing programs in the state. And when you consider the size of our town, maybe in the country for ratio. So, is it good for Madison? Probably.
You're comfortable with us voting for this? Okay.
Rob?
So, as Ray mentioned, more than likely, the findings will or demand extra services from our health department, right? And, all of us at one time or other have stood up and said, we need to address costs, we need to address spending, et cetera. Considering how much we spend per capita for health services compared to everyone else, including our client cities, I, for one, am not in favor of doing anything that would potentially increase the amount we spend until we decide precisely what it is we want to do with the health department, which I believe is going to be discussed in the upcoming budget sessions. So for me, I don't think we should start down this path because more than likely we're going to wind up at a place that is going to demand a higher spend from the health department. And right now, we don't know what we're going to do. So I think we should wait.
Yeah, I don't know if all of this would fall in the health department or it could fall in other services or just create a guiding, almost a
well, it would
strategic
create
plan
a false
for senior.
expectation among a very important part of our, a very important segment of our population, the seniors, that something is forthcoming when we may make a decision in a few weeks or months that would make it impossible for us to fulfill, whatever the results of this consultant happens to be. And I wouldn't want to be in that situation. I don't want to raise it. I don't want to lead anyone on, right? Number one. And number two, we got to figure out what we're going to do as it pertains to spending on health.
Ben, and then back to Carmela.
What happens if we vote against this?
Well, they would not be awarded the grant. I mean, basically, they anticipate the grant will be approved, and in order to execute the grant agreement, the governing body is the contracting party. So if you don't authorize this resolution, you're saying you're not going to sign the grant agreement and accept the grant.
But do you get back in the queue next time, or have you?
I would think the Grata Foundation would not look kindly if we reject their.
Okay, that makes sense.
Their offer now.
I think one of the problems here is that Grotto has actually determined that Madison would receive this grant without any. They actually approached Madison Health Department and said, we'd like to give you $35,000, but it's actually more money than that. I believe it's higher, isn't it, Ray? It goes up to like $70,000.
This follow-on.
$25,000
Right.
over a multi-year period.
Yeah.
No, Carmela's correct. This was the money
So,
coming in the door.
it's there. because if you look at the resolution, the expectation is that this is going to be announced in 2 days, that they received the grant. So at this point, hey, you know what? It's just saying, yeah, go ahead. It's already been done.
But why was it done? Why wasn't procedure followed? Why didn't the health department come to the governing body and say, will you do this? So I don't like necessarily being backed into a corner because someone didn't follow the rules.
I don't think it's quite that, but I think it's a time factor, but Grotto has promised that we will get the grant. They submitted all the paperwork?
I'm sorry?
Have they submitted all the paperwork?
I don't know.
Yes.
They must have. If it's just 2 days, I would have to
I
assume.
think everything has been submitted.
Well, according
Yeah.
to the resolution
It's
again,
just this resolution.
we're going to find out in 2 days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
They didn't ask us to submit it. Yeah.
Rob?
My final question is, okay, so if we were to accept this grant, okay, would that in effect nullify any decision we would potentially take on the health department?
I don't think a grant on a study commits us to anything because how can you take on, so let's say it says 24-hour transportation. Even if it says seniors want 24-hour transportation, it's going to come down to this board allocating resources. It's still going to be, it may, just like the strategic planning, not everything that was suggested becomes part of the path.
In all likelihood, if it's a budgetary item, it won't be enacted till 2017.
Right.
And if Grotto has a presence in the state of New Jersey, I would think they are aware that health departments are changing daily, and that they're taking, that we may consider some different structure of our health department or partnerships with the county or whatever, and that we could still implement parts of whatever they come back with if they wanted to.
I think one thing to keep in mind is at a workshop last week related to my paying job, but they pointed out that in the next decade, 18% of the our country's population will be 65 and over. For the state of New Jersey, it's far greater than that. It's going to be closer to 26%. You look at Madison, so if you consider the fact that if we are like the rest of New Jersey, 1 in 4 of our residents could be 65 and over, it's probably a worthwhile, should we look at what we can do to make this town better for the aging population. I think it's probably worthwhile.
No argument with that, but I mean, if, in the context of a shrinking health department, potentially shrinking health department, I think everyone has to have their eyes wide open and expectations need to be tempered.
Right. Yep. I think that's going to be the key.
What's more troubling to me is this is now another time when one of our committees, the health department's not necessarily a committee, have entered into a contract more or less on behalf of the borough against the law. Right? The Environmental Commission did it several years ago when they went and they signed a contract for water runoff testing at the MRC without informing us. Now it seems as though we've got this. I mean, we really need to start enforcing some discipline as it pertains to this. Otherwise, who knows where we could wind up. I'm done.
Okay. All right, we're ready for a roll call vote?
Catalanello?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Right, there is no unfinished business. Approval of vouchers.
Public safety, $61,699.75. Health and public assistance, $4,710.71. Public works and engineering, $141,071.47. Community affairs, $14,804.18. Finance and borough clerk, $672,495.71. Utilities, $183,434.98. The total is $1,078,216.80.
Mayor, I move the vouchers.
Have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Mr. Catalanello?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
There is no new business outside of everyone have happy holidays and a happy new year, so
I will second that and also move that we adjourn.
thank you. We'll see you all back New Year's Day.
When they turn the air off, you know it's time to go home. Yeah, really.
You know,
Oh, yes, it was in this folder, right?
I actually saw Jim sleeping once.
Okay.